Merry Christmas, one and all, and Happy Holidays to those others who are perhaps not Christian, but do have Hollywood-type images of what this is all supposed to mean to us, and it's the only game in town. There are other religions, of course, and to all of you, Happy Holidays. So, okay, we're going to hear things tonight that you have never heard before. This is going to be another program of remarkable revelation. Do I insist that you accept it and believe it all? Of course not. But we are going to present it to you from two very remarkable and one extraordinarily remarkable man, William Mills Tompkins. Bill Tompkins has a book called Selected by Extraterrestrials, the first of several autobiographical books which detail his unbelievable life. He has this first book out, Selected by Extraterrestrials, My Life in the Top Secret World of UFOs, Think Tanks, and Nordic Secretaries. He was selected by the Nordics in 1942, assigned by the Navy to intelligence because of his remarkable memory skills, as you know if you heard the first program with us. Bill was exposed immediately to the Navy's knowledge of Hitler's UFO program, as you also heard. After the war, he began working in a think tank at Douglas Aircraft Company for aerospace executive Elmer Wheaton, and with naval intelligence to offer creative suggestions and designs for huge naval spacecraft carriers. The authenticity of part of the story is corroborated by editor Bob Wood. Dr. Wood, who was employed at the same time, same facility, and knew some of the very same company leaders. The Nordic secretaries Bill was given may have used their psychic powers to keep NASA on the right track for an effective Apollo program and to begin the covert naval exploration of the galaxy. Yes, Navy. Remember, don't think Air Force, think U.S. Navy. They're behind all this stuff. It's quite remarkable. So the book itself, Selected by Extraterrestrials, is available at Amazon. Should be under Bill Tompkins' name right now. And let's first say hello to Frank Chile, if he's on the line. Are you there, Frank?
I'm here. Good evening, Jeff.
Hi. Thanks for being here, and thanks for setting this up again. The first program was a barn-burning knockout, as they say. Just amazing.
Yes.
So what are we going to hear tonight?
Well, part two is going to be a stunner. It was a pleasure talking with Bill yesterday, and he shared some information with me that he said he would be willing to discuss on your program. And your audience is in for some extraordinary, mind-bending,
shocking revelations is what what I'm expecting to hear. And Bill Tompkins is an extraordinary 93 years of age. 92, 93, who's counting? You get up that high and it doesn't really matter. It never really does. And Dr. Bob Wood is well known to this program for many years as being someone who's been involved at the highest levels of the cover-up and the uncover-up, which is what we're hoping to get done tonight. So let's say hello to Dr. Bob Wood. Are you there, Bob?
Yes, I am, Jeff.
Welcome back.
Thank you.
Does it seem like Christmas, Bob?
Well, tomorrow is Christmas Eve, and we're going to have our family here.
Good for you. Then it'll be Christmas. Okay. Let's again say hello to William Mills, call me Bill, Tompkins. Hello, Bill. Welcome to the program.
Hi, Jeff. Thank you for the program exposure here.
Oh, of course. It's just extra unusual to run across anybody with your background, your abilities, your capabilities, and your experience. And again, I have to caution people, make up your own mind, but I would urge you to buy the book. Listening to Bill tonight, we're going to do this a little differently than we did last time. Last time was kind of a timeline progression. We're going to talk about some specific things tonight that Bill came into contact with. Didn't just hear about them, he experienced them. And some of them are going to be amazing, I guarantee it. What did you think of the first program, Bill? How did you come away with that?
Well, I enjoyed having a chance to talk about some of these things because it's gosh, it's sort of like a person being able to things he's been involved in for many, many years, and hopefully that some of the people listening will not just listen to what's said, but drop by the bookstore and check out other books on the subject. I think like Bob Wood's book, Alien Viruses. That's a tremendous document.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
It's something that people should read.
Well, hopefully they will. And let's try and tantalize them tonight with Bill Tompkins, and we're going to talk about, I'm just going to pull up some subjects that were referenced to me earlier by Frank as things that Bill would like to talk about, and Bob can certainly comment on them. And let's get going. There has been, for years, talk about a vast system of underground tunnels all over the United States, probably all over much of the developed and undeveloped world, but especially here in the U.S. Underground tunnels that have extraordinarily high speed transit systems in them, whether they be maglev or vacuum tube. I don't know. I would sure like to know. Bill does know. He's been down there and seen some of these things. So it's not also something that we need to look at as contemporary accomplishments. It is said that there are tunnels down there, tunnel systems from ETs, tunnel systems that were built long, long ago by other visitors, perhaps, or other forms of intelligent life on this planet. So there's a kind of a mix down there of these tunnel systems which are linked together, and apparently most of them have these high-speed transit options for people to take. They don't get down there and drive trucks and cars. It's much different. So let's go, Bill, into the underground world of tube tunnels. Tell us about your experiences. When did this first start? And as a young man, when you were making your models, did you ever think that you would be involved with underground tunnels?
Oh, gosh, that's... no, who would ever think you would be involved with tunnels?
Not me.
That's wait a minute, that's ridiculous. Everybody knows that.
Yeah.
But it was interesting in the Douglas think tank to have one of the PhDs, and we had dozens of them in there, drop by our office where there was another fellow like myself, June grad type, and he and I had worked together to support the requirements of the think tank. So a fellow dropped back and he said, I need a program on. I need you to put together a package. I need a design and the capability for handling communications from different locations underneath the ground.
Right. Underneath the ground. Okay. Yeah, communications from under the ground. All right.
And he didn't elaborate, and most of my information in the tank, they don't give me details. They just tell you to do something, and you go out and figure it out yourself. But so I was fortunate in that I had a photograph of an Air Force digger, if you want to call it that. It's about a 38-foot diameter capability, and it's photographic. Actually, it's in the book. The photograph shows some 30 Air Force personnel standing by this great big machine which digs tunnels. And
I know the device. It's round. It's huge, and it goes through anything, basically. And what is it?
On page 101 of the book.
Yeah, page 101. Thank you, Bob. These tunnel boring machines, you never hear about them. They're just basically covered up by the mainstream media. They're not talked about. They're not shown. They've been around. I've seen pictures of these things from the 70s, and they were huge then. I can't even imagine the technology where it is today, 35, 40 years later. Okay, so tell us more.
Well, actually, it's interesting that we have different groups of extraterrestrials that are utilizing these tunnels. They have them all over the western states, and of course they have them in Antarctica, and that was Admiral Byrd's problem, trying to handle those down there. But the capability of some of the extraterrestrials to dig these tunnels with their big boring machines, actually, they're sometimes 50 foot in diameter, and they operate on rail when they're completed. But as their machine, not the Air Force's, as their machine does its forward digging, it has the capability to take the material, whether it's just plain rock or dirt or whatever it is that it runs into, and it converts this material into a glass and elastic type material, which then, as it moves through at 40 miles an hour, the backside of it, all of the material is used to fill up all the crevices that breaking in areas, and it lines the tunnel with a type of material that produces light. And all of this is going at 40 miles an hour.
Now, hold on. Okay, hold on, Bill, if you would. 40 miles an hour. I have never heard of these machines, our machines, being able to do that before. I think it's something like 1 mile an hour or something, and that's considered fast.
That's correct. You're right. You're absolutely right. And the situation is, again, hard for people to accept. But the planet itself has caverns all over the planet, underneath the oceans, underneath large lakes, all over the planet.
Now you say caverns, Bill, excuse me, are you talking about tunnels, or are you talking about larger caverns that the tunnels connect to?
Okay, I'm talking about the caverns which the tunnels connect to.
Okay.
And so what we have with the tunnels is that in some cases, as the tunnel is being built, they run into a cavern, because they don't know where the caverns are, and they find extraterrestrial facilities there.
So the Air Force is down there digging tunnels, and they come across things that they weren't expecting.
Absolutely, and like the tunnel that runs from underground the Pentagon to, say, the Air Force facility out on the desert here. That tunnel ran into 2 other tunnels during its construction and one large cavern. So they had to back off and go around it.
Funny.
And so when it got to the Air Force facility here out in the desert, they built another tunnel over to the Air Force launch area on the Pacific here.
At Vandenberg.
Tunnels. Yeah, but tunnels are all over your planet. I'd like to comment on that, if I may.
Yes, Bill. By the way, Bob, who's coming on right now, thank you, Bill. The idea of it being very busy down there is kind of humorous when you think about it.
Yes.
Okay, Bob Wood, go ahead.
Yeah, what I wanted to say is from kind of an academic viewpoint. In the mid-'50s, I remember the Scientific American magazine, which is viewed by many to be the most scholarly magazine of the academia, was talking about how easy it would be to make tunnels that were evacuated from over there, so they were in effect in a vacuum. You could get up to hundreds of miles an hour without any problem on magnetic levitation. Now, this was in the open literature in the mid-50s, I mean.
No kidding.
And actually you can find that issue of the Scientific American magazine today. And after it described how simple and easy it would be to do this, there was absolutely nothing. No follow-up, no discussion of how you might engineer it. And in my judgment, that's when it went into the black world.
All black then thereafter. So Scientific American published a story about these tunnels in the 1950s, on the magazine stands.
Yes.
And was it presented as someday we'll be able to, or was it presented as
someday we'll be able to, and it's not that hard.
I see. In other words, they were covering even then, but they were letting the cat out of the bag, and it was upsetting certain people, so that was kind of the end of it. I got it. That's amazing that they had anything at all in print in the 50s about the possibility of tunnel systems. Yeah, it's busy down there. Very busy. All right, Bill, go ahead.
Well, it's just that the idea that there's also very large facilities there for research, that both a naval person and some of the extraterrestrials work together.
Uh-huh.
And there's a very large facility that the Navy has out off of Highway 395 in the desert. And it's a Navy research facility.
Is that China Lake?
And, yeah, China Lake Naval Research Center.
China Lake, 395 goes on the backside of the Sierras from L.A. all the way up to Reno and beyond. It's a highway.
It only goes to Lake Tahoe as far as we were concerned.
Reno, yeah, understand. Okay. Now, go ahead. No, you go ahead.
Well, that facility, as early as 43, 44, the Navy used it for all types of testing of not just the missiles, but virtually everything that they had.
Mm-hmm.
And in the project work that I had to do in the Navy, we flew out to that facility. We got our documents and we took it to people that were going to be studying that program. Mm-hmm. And it was interesting that they had the regular hangars and buildings around it, a lot of buildings, and all kinds of tanks for fuel and everything.
Mm-hmm.
But you go into the one building, and it's a large center building, and you walk down through a long corridor. It's above ground, and they had windows in it so you could see what's going on as you go between the buildings.
Yes.
The next building, you go down a stairway, or you take the elevator. If you take the elevator, you'll go down quite a number of levels. If you just take the first stairway down, you go there. So I would go down and I'd take my documents and bring them in and get together with the people that we need to get the project run.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a very interesting thing that existed that far back.
Now, what year was this again, Bill, please?
This is 44, 45 time period.
So China Lake had serious underground facilities in the early 40s. That's extraordinary. I had no idea. The idea of depth, how deep approximately were you able to find out that this facility went? Do you remember?
Well, for what I was doing, I only went down to the first floor, but a couple of times several of us took the elevator down, which I think was four levels.
Uh-huh.
And we just got out and came back up because we didn't have anything to do down there.
Okay.
But in the ground, it's just like being in a large building.
Gotcha. Now, these tunnel systems that go all over the place have to have one thing in common. They have to have air. So there must be air outlets and intakes cleverly hidden all over the place where these tunnels exist, correct?
Yes. And those air intakes are the same as some of the aerospace companies' underground facilities located in several states here in the West.
Uh-huh.
And I guess the easiest way to cover that would be a friend of mine that worked with us at TRW. He was driving out to his mother's place in Provo, Utah. he was watching a bunch of birds and stuff, and he parked his car off the highway.
Yeah.
And then he came back and got the car and drove it over sort of a dirt road partway further. He got out of the car and he walked 2 miles. And as he walked the 2 miles, a piece of land, now this was quite flat, a piece of land with all the weeds and everything on it. And I'm sure all of the scorpions and the snakes disappeared. And this opening was rectangular, and it was about half a mile long and about a quarter of a mile wide.
Okay. And when you say it disappeared, it dropped down?
It dropped down.
All right.
And so this vehicle came down quite fast and then very slowly didn't stop, just went right down inside.
A disc or a flying saucer?
Well, it was a big cigar-shaped thing.
Okay.
And so now he wasn't supposed to see that, of course.
Who was this guy? Who was this guy again, Bill? That's taking the walk?
He was one of the fellows that I work with at PRW Space Systems.
Okay. All right. And this is occurring in Utah.
Yeah. It's about. I guess you go up through. You don't go through Salt Lake City. Before Salt Lake City, but also there's other ones east of Salt Lake City and the Wasatch Mountains.
So this is basically a great big, enormous garage door to allow these interplanetary, if not interstellar, intergalactic ships to fly right into and then park.
And go down into the facility, which is now, of course, the big caverns. And naturally, somebody goofed because they should have caught him and made sure that he didn't witness this.
Yeah.
But there's another part of that. For several years, I had a great deal of work on this same subject up in Southern Oregon. And I started a Navy League Council up there and was able to get some 30 lieutenant commanders and captains that were retired. Only one of them was active, and one Air Force pilot. In my council that I had for this Navy League Council. And so we had a research group on extraterrestrials up there for many years.
Where was this in Southern Oregon, Bill?
This is Medford, Oregon.
That's where I am.
Okay, well, it's just across the border from California.
It's about 15, 20 miles. That's it.
Right. And so this group, we had about, I started this council and I got Admiral Marsh from the naval base, submarine base up in Bremerton to come down and give a speech when we started this Navy League Council. And we had, in a very short time, we had about 200 people, but this group of 30 fellas all had their own airplanes, all but one. And they used the airplanes for business all over the West Coast here. So these fellows, now this is interesting, these fellows, way before I started this Navy League Council, had been flying their planes, usually small aircraft, maybe some twin engine, all around Shasta, Mount Shasta, because not only they had seen the UFOs come out of Mount Shasta for years, but they watched them to go into the Shasta. So one of the major programs that we worked on for several years was just taking their Jeeps, and we drove, eventually we drove all the way around a couple of times Mount Shasta trying to find these doors. Nobody ever found a single door.
The rumors about tunnels and caverns under Mount Shasta are legion. There are lots of them, of course. Go ahead.
Well, it's just all I meant to say, Jeff, was that here we've got fellows that were naval people in the war. They were very knowledgeable. They were all Navy
yes.
pilots, except for the one Air Force guy. We gave him a hard time. But these fellows lived up there in Medford, and we had really good facilities for support of their airplanes and everything. So they on their off time, they're out flying around and/or jeeping around detailed areas. They quadrant them off into 6 sections and 20 sections and 40 sections, and on and off. They never did find one, but they had 3 of the fellows were in a place on the northeast side when one of them came out, and they couldn't see the tunnel. They couldn't see the door. It just it went down. It was gone. There was no door, and out came the UFO. It's amazing.
Okay.
And as you're saying, Jeff, there's a lot of underground facilities up there and a lot of activities up there.
That's what I hear. I haven't seen much. Yeah, go ahead, Bob.
I'd like to put Bill's remarks into context. He has mentioned that he's got several books in mind, and one of them, of course, is published, Selected by Extraterrestrials. That's the first one that takes his life roughly up to
Yes.
The second one he has visualized is the one that kind of talks about the things that were done at TRW, and one of the next books is the ones that happened after that up in Oregon, which is what he's just talking about. So you're visualizing some of the content of the next 2 books that he has.
Fascinating. Well, this is a knockout because I'm at the convergence of the Cascades and the Siskiyous. That's where that Southern Oregon area is that Bill is talking about. It's beautiful. And I assume, or do I assume correctly, that there is an underground tunnel that runs probably under here and all the way up to Bremerton, Washington area? Are we tunneled up here too?
Absolutely, yes, definitely.
If you're right, Bill, then the AT tunnel boring machines can do 40 miles an hour. They could turn this place into a honeycomb, a beehive of tunnels in a couple of years. That's amazing.
They have the ability.
Yeah. So a lot of these craft that are seen easily, obviously, go underground. They have enormous hangar doors where the earth just will slide away sideways or drop down, and they go right in. That's why they disappear so easily. Remarkable. There was also a very interesting event that happened in the Santa Susana Mountains up there at Rocketdyne. A craft was seen to come over, appeared to be in trouble. It looked like it was on fire. Landed there. An Air Force retired brigadier general saw this, went on up there, and the roads were cordoned off with unmarked military people. They didn't have any insignia on, and they wouldn't let this fellow in. He had civilians on. So he went back the next day and up to this area where this blazing craft had come down, and said he came back in his uniform, and the man saluted one of the guards and said, "Yes, sir." And he said, "I want you, son, to tell me exactly what's going on up here." And the soldier, or whoever he was, he wore an unmarked uniform, said, "Well, sir, all I'm privileged to tell you, all I can tell you is that a craft was in trouble. It landed here last night for repairs. It's gone today." And that was what he found out. So I assume that Rocketdyne is obviously worked into this tunnel system as well.
Absolutely. I worked at Rocketdyne for a while. Actually, I was working for North American. And but in fact, that was after I got fired at Douglas, and how I got fired is interesting too. But Rocketdyne was very heavily involved in reviewing and trying to copy extraterrestrial materials that were in the 3 vehicles that crashed at Roswell.
Back engineering at Rocketdyne. Very interesting.
Reverse engineering. And my brother-in-law was manager of the electronics facility there. And he was personally working on some of their components, which I thought was really interesting.
Well, I should say. Now, let me go back if I can, and you're going to cover this in a book or two down the road, the Oregon connection. All these gentlemen were living up here in the Medford area. I guess this is the 40s and 50s when this is going on. Very rural back then, not much population here. Was there anything else? There's a base, well, let's call it an ET base at Lake Shasta, Mount Shasta. And what else in southern Oregon is of interest, besides it being a residential venue for these gentlemen? Is there anything else going on here?
Well, this took place actually in the 80s.
Uh-huh.
And so that's when I was back there.
I see.
And there were many situations that these fellows had been themselves, before I formed this Navy League Council, they were interested in different UFO sightings.
Right.
And they were tremendously interested in finding these. And they fortunately had the facility at the airport where we had our meetings, our classified meetings.
Oh, at Medford Airport.
And at Medford Airport. And the guy that's the manager there, he is one of the people that was partially involved in what we were doing. So we had a lot of people that were very interested in the whole extraterrestrial situation. And several of the fellows had, this is very interesting, because we had a Navy reserve facility just outside of Medford, just northwest. And that facility was for training people. And so we had a group of our Navy fellows would give briefings to the students in the schools there over on the facility where it was being used as a Navy Reserve Center. So one of the Reserve Center chiefs, Navy chiefs, had his daughter out with a number of other children in the summertime. They were just on a picnic thing. And when these extraterrestrials came over and started talking with them, they looked sort of like us. And they gave these children technical briefings. And it turned out all over Oregon, Washington area, in the, as you're saying, Jeff, it's sort of a rural area. So many of the students in the schools live in places where there's all kinds of open land, which is being agriculture or whatever.
Sure.
And so pretty soon, this got to be a standard. And of course, they were told, all the children were told, never to tell their mothers or father or the family what they're doing. But it was a educational program for the students.
Run by ETs.
Run by extraterrestrials. And I thought this was, I ran into it because I did work over at the base, and I gave briefings there too and meetings. But the point was, this chief's daughter was the first one that finally, she did tell the father, and of course, he then immediately told the captain that I had in the Navy League Council, and boy, that we started another investigation on the whole thing. But they used a holograph type of presentation for the to do their demonstrations, and it just, of course, floated. They would be on the side of the barn or in the barn or just right out underneath the trees. The kids after school would go out and they'd play and stuff. And it was very, very interesting to the level of how much that was going on that the people in Medford didn't know.
That's really amazing.
I couldn't believe it.
Yeah, that's amazing. All right, now, we have to take a break for 2 minutes. Hold on, we'll come right back, Bill. I want to ask you, when we come back, if you've actually ever been in any of these underground tunnels or taken a ride or know people who have. So hold on, we'll come right back to that in just a few minutes. Okay, I'm back with Dr. Bob Wood and Bill Tompkins, aerospace engineer, extraordinary life, and I hope all of you will buy his book. Can't wait for the other ones to come out. This will chronicle and document things that I've been hearing about on this program and before, over 25 years now. Just remarkable. And to have that group of people here in Medford and to have ETs who could pass, I assume they were Nordics, or something very close to it, teaching young people outdoors, indoors, wherever about things. Very interesting, to be sure. Now, Bill, if we can, I will save the rest of that for your book, but let's go back and ask you about the tunnels. Were you ever in? Did you ever see any? Or do you have associates who did?
Let's back off a little bit. Let's get back into the Douglas Secret think tank.
Okay.
Bob doesn't know anything about. Okay.
All right.
I'm giving him a hard time here. One of the PhDs came into the work area where I was, and he said, "I want you to design a facility that will give us capability to do blah blah blah." And so I need a preliminary.
Can you tell me what the blah, blah, blah is, Bill?
Okay. It was for a command center to be used by the military.
Underground Command and Control Center, all right?
Yes. And so I designed this. I did the study, and then I made the drawings. And I usually do three, the first program and at least two trade-off studies, okay? And I finally guessed what they wanted. And so this then was to be an Air Force facility, and it was to be their facility tied in with the Navy's communication for locating extraterrestrials that would be coming into this region.
Okay, so this was is this Southern Cal? This is Southern California?
No.
All right.
This is underneath the ground in Omaha, Nebraska.
Okay, so that's where the SAC headquarters are. So this was something in Omaha to track incoming from off-planet ET craft that were coming into the U.S. or down to the U.S., right? And then tracking coming and going.
Yes.
All right.
And,
now we have geosynchronous satellites out 18,000 miles, which job it is to do just that, I am told as well. They watch from out there.
But this is in 1953.
Before satellites, 5 years, 5, 6, 7 years. Yeah. Okay. So how were they tracking? What were they using to track them? Radars?
Yes, at that time.
Okay.
But I think what's interesting about this facility is that.
And you designed it. You designed it.
Yeah, I designed it. Yes, and this, in fact, there's a drawing of it in the book. I forget what page it is, but they went down 40 stories, and they were in a massive cavern on the
Okay,
edge of it.
let me ask you to hold on. I'm going to rewind. They went down 40 stories. These are private contractors hired by the government to start digging, and they dug down that deep, or did they tunnel down that deep?
Well, they tunneled it down, and
That's awfully deep, yeah.
so that but they actually have the facility in a cavern.
Okay,
And
so did you know the cavern was there when you built this, or did they run into a cavern?
The government had located caverns.
Okay.
And so this one was selected.
All right.
And this then allowed them to build a concrete dome, which was almost 20 foot thick. And inside this dome was everything that was needed as a massive communication center.
Wow.
And so I was able, many years later, to, on another program, to have a meeting with the Air Force. And it was at the bottom of this elevator and in this control center. So to me, I know all about what the design was. I know how they built it. I know where it was. But I never went to it. I never was there.
Okay.
And to be able to spend 2 weeks doing a lot of stuff in something that I had designed almost 20 years earlier was very interesting for me.
Fascinating.
And this, of course, had the tunnel that went right into the Pentagon. And so...
did you see the tunnel, Bill? Did you see it?
I didn't go into it, but if we had just kept walking, yes.
So, okay, was there an okay, the tunnel comes to the facility you built. Did you have to go through a door to get to the tunnel? How did it interface with the building?
Okay, well,
I'm trying to get a picture of
like
this.
It's the entrance to the tunnel is just like a train entrance, a small train entrance.
Okay.
That's the easiest way. When you see it, and you look down the tunnel, it's all the lights are turned on all the way down continually, and you got the rails for the train, and it goes out both ways in a T shape. But from the concrete center, it's only like less than a block to the station, and so there's several buildings underground off on the side. In fact, quite a few of them. And so then the back side of this cavern, because the whole facility is built in that location, goes into the tunnel. The other side goes across the cavern, and there's a bridge goes in the cavern to get into another tunnel. We couldn't see that, but they showed that.
That's a huge cavern under the ground. Huge.
Well, the ones under Shasta are huge too.
Well, the one you were in had your dome structure, and it had several other buildings built down there. It had a T-shaped tunnel interface with it. Now, this tunnel, you said, had railroad, this is 1954, had railroad-type tracks. Was this something that was using trains to transit, or something like trains? Not maglev back then.
It was regular trains, but remember, I did the design in 53, 54
Oh, I see.
period.
Okay.
And so I didn't get to this facility, even though they built it just a very few years later.
Yeah.
I didn't get to it until 15, 16 years later.
So it started out in 1954 as drawings from Bill Tompkins, and they built it, and you finally got to see it.
There's a drawing on page 334 of the sketch of what you're talking about, actually.
Okay, it's in the book, page 334. Now, some of you, we're just about out of time for this hour. Let me bring George Filer on here. George, are you there?
Yes, I'm there.
Hi. This is all wonderful, and I have to ask Bill a question. Bill, were you warned or threatened not to disclose any of this material by anybody? Or do they figure you've been around long enough and you're going to do what you want and nobody's going to pay much attention? What's the deal?
So far, got fingers crossed, nobody said anything to me. And I have to say, I know a great many people in the Navy, far more than the Air Force people.
Yeah.
And a number of these are extremely interested in having the information disseminated to the public.
It's time.
I won't say who the admiral is, but he made the statement. Well, I will say, Admiral Hugh Webster. He made the statement years ago that we needed every man, woman, and child in the country working on this.
Wow.
His statement is on the back cover of the book, actually. He says,
yeah, I saw that.
Tell it all.
Yeah, I saw it. Bill, tell it all. That's what he told you. Tell it all. Okay, George, what are your thoughts on this so far?
Well, it may sound funny, but when I was in the Air Force, I had orders in case there was World War III or, some similar type situation to go to some of these underground facilities. So I know at least that my orders was for one at Mount Weathers. I don't know if these other places existed. I just know that at least one existed. So, because I had orders to go there. And then in Turkey, I was actually in an underground base there.
In Turkey?
Right. Near Izmir, Turkey.
That was one of our bases, I assume.
Yeah. Well, part of NATO and so on. But these facilities do exist. I don't know if there is as many as he's been talking about, but there's certainly at least some that I could vouch for.
I'm getting the feeling that there's as much below ground as there is above ground, perhaps. I mean, it's awfully complicated down there.
Well, we used to know that the...
What's that, Bill?
This is Bob. I'm just saying the Nazis
sorry.
had an extensive underground network, according to some research documents.
Yeah, I've read some stories about their tunnels. A lot of them are flooded now in one area in Poland. And go ahead, George. Sorry.
Most of them underground were used to build their various aircraft and missiles and so on, that they were afraid of being bombed. Russia had similar type facilities that, I don't know how extensive they are, but we know that a lot of these facilities exist. And I've talked to people who've been to Egypt and have been in underground facilities and saw tunnels as far as they could see that were perfectly smooth, about 25 feet in diameter.
Well, that goes back to what Bill described at the beginning of the hour of how the tunnel machines take the material that they bored through and superheat it somehow and then lay it in around the circle, around the archway of the tube behind it as it passes along and leaving a perfectly round, smooth tunnel. In the ET tunnels, Bill said that they have some ability to make that material glow, so there's some illumination 360 degrees around these tunnels all the way. That's pretty neat, too.
Well, they do that same facility aboard their craft. We've had many reports of, you might say, lighted walls.
Yeah.
Lighted walls and ceilings.
Right. Okay. Hold on a second. We have to pause. We'll come right back. Okay, and back, hour number 2, and we're talking to Dr. Bob Wood and the amazing Bill Tompkins. And do click on the book selected by extraterrestrials, and get a copy. You can click on it and go right to Amazon and get it tonight. This is a knockout, the first of 4 or 5 books, maybe more, that Bill is going to make available to us. He's telling things he's not supposed to say, but he hadn't been told not to yet. So maybe this is part of the disclosure effort that some say is, well, we all say is long overdue, but is underway now. And I would suggest that by virtue of the fact that what we're hearing is not being bothered, and that may be true. Bob, what are your thoughts about this so far? You were the editor of this first book.
Well, when I first met him, his story was so amazing that I almost didn't believe it. But as I became better acquainted and realized that he knew the same people that I knew, I got gradually convinced that there's no question but what he believes, everything he's saying tonight and in the books. Is absolutely what he remembers.
Well, you can hear him thinking and drawing on his memory banks. I mean, that's one of the most pleasurable things a host can hear. Hear a guest not repeating pre-recorded messages or learned texts and contentions and tracts and all of that. These are real experiences that he's telling us about. They're remarkable. Douglas Aircraft and Douglas Missiles in Space was heavily involved in this, Bob, this whole thing, I guess.
Well, actually, some of that was a surprise to me because I had no idea that.
And you were top secret there.
Well, later I was. Yeah, that's right. But when I was working at the same time that Bill was there, I was just kind of a young engineer doing the aerodynamics and thermodynamics sort of thing.
Uh-huh.
I didn't really know him personally, although we were in the same group. He was working on ground support electronics, and I was a thermodynamicist, so we didn't talk to each other much.
Very interesting. All right. Okay, let's go back. Go ahead, Bill. Bob, anything else to say?
No, I think that's a good background.
Yeah, good. Excellent. I want to get as much as we can this hour with Bill, and then we'll obviously have you guys on again if you'd like. There's so many things to talk about. I've been given a list by Frank Chile that is stunning. We've talked about underground tubes and tunnels, and suffice it to say that they are all over the place in this country, and they link not only just to city destinations and military bases, but they link to enormous, naturally occurring, or maybe not, underground caverns, the openings in the earth down there, and they're being used to put buildings and all kinds of things. I suggest that some of them that you've heard we have accidentally entered, we shouldn't have gone in there because they were preoccupied by others that aren't supposed to be here as far as we're concerned. Of course, they've probably been here long before we. They're being used to hangar and otherwise store spacecraft, interstellar spacecraft, intergalactic spacecraft, intersolar system spacecraft, amazing things. Now, there is something here called Solar Warden. Tell us about the Solar Wardens, Bill, please.
Okay. I have to. This gets boring, but
well, if it's too boring, don't. I mean, but go ahead if we need it. It's fine.
I'm being facetious.
I get it.
We got to go back to this think tank inside of Douglas, and I just want to make one point.
Sure.
Douglas himself, he was the fellow who started the think tank inside of Douglas, and it was supported by the Secretary of the Navy, several Air Force generals, and it had been studying extraterrestrials for quite a long time. Now, one of the things that came up when we got into different requirements for different programs.
Mm-hmm.
Now, ask your question again because I want to refer it in a different way.
All right.
So the
term is Solar Warden, like a warden in a prison. What is that about?
Okay. So, back in that think tank, one of the other fellows comes in and he said, Bill, I want you to put together some type of space vehicles that could operate in the galaxy. And that was about it. And so from that, I then got another thing from another PhD. And he said he wanted me to come up with what types of missions the Navy would be doing if they had to combat people out in the galaxy. So that's another part. So these two things, then, I did quite extensive studies on both of them, actually for several months. But I came up with a half a dozen different kilometer and 2 kilometer long space vehicles and everything.
Now, hold on, please. People are going to say, wait a minute, Bill, how would you be able to build a 1 or 2 kilometer spacecraft down here, fly it up into orbit, and then park it there, service it, stock it, and have it take off and go on patrols around the solar system? Was it designed to be built on the ground, or was it designed to be constructed in orbit?
Well, this is a little bit of a long story, but I will answer your question. So I did both of those studies. I came up with several types of missions that would have to be performed. And I designed quite a number of different capital ships, like spacecraft carriers. Some of them a kilometer long, some of them 4 kilometers long. But I also designed a 17-kilometer long transport, a transport to take people off the planet. And the book to get the answers to that part. Now, back to your question of Solar Warden.
Wait a minute, I got it, please. This is absolutely beyond intriguing. This 17-kilometer long craft designed to take people off the planet. Do you have any knowledge that it was ever built, or was it strictly in the design stage?
I do not know whether that one was built, but 4 kilometers were.
They were. Okay, so we built 4-kilometer long spacecraft here on the ground and somehow got them into orbit, correct?
Yes, and that manufacturing facility is located in Utah.
All right. They probably would have been built in modules, I would think. That's an awfully big piece of equipment.
I need to jump in here with a quick remark.
Go ahead, Bob.
Wood.
Yeah.
On page 68 and 67 are the original sketches in Bill's own handwriting, one of them of a 2-kilometer long spaceship.
Wow.
So I think the thing that really impressed me is that we're looking at the sketch that was done by Bill Tompkins himself.
Absolutely. Now, he says the 4-kilometer long craft was built. Okay. Did you ever get to see it in its completed stage, Bill, or were you just told?
No, I didn't. But let me just. I got to go just a little further.
Sure, go ahead.
Now, I had worked for Northrop after I worked for Douglas, and I worked for Northrop before I worked for Douglas. But when Douglas was taken over, Northrop then took the information that was done in the think tank, and they went to Virginia, and they sat down with the people there, and they Navy people, and then they came back and borrowed a bunch of money, and they bought the U.S. Navy construction facilities for battleships and for aircraft carriers, and actually for submarines. But it was the aircraft carrier ones that they wanted. So they learned how to build a massive kilometer-long spacecraft carrier, which is what you see when you see the pictures of Solar Warden. Northrop learned how to build them, and they then built these facilities along with people from some of the other aerospace companies, too. But it wasn't until recently that a disclosure came out about extraterrestrial U.S. Navy spacecraft carriers and battle groups. And so the point point here that back again in the Douglas facility, those vehicles were from studies that were made there in the 54, 55, 56 time period.
Okay.
And it took till the 80s to get them really built. And they are operating out in the galaxy. Now, some of them have facilities for maintenance and support on Mars and on Jupiter's moons.
Okay.
But many of their stations, their support stations, are out in the galaxy.
I mean, you're talking about in the Milky Way. They're not in our solar system. They're elsewhere.
No, they're in our solar system.
Okay.
They're operating in our solar system.
But it's a galactic format, even though they're still here in the solar system. I understand. Gotcha. Now, let me ask you a question. People are going to want to know this, and I don't know if it's in the book or not, but the idea of building a kilometer-long or 2-kilometer-long craft, pretty hard to hide from people, you'd think, but things are hidden all the time from people, and they never see them. When you drew this up, what was the method of propulsion that you drew up and integrated into your plans that would propel this craft into orbit and then in an interplanetary mode? What was the method of
Very
propulsion?
simple, anti-gravitational.
Okay. And where did we get that? We back-engineered it?
Yes.
All right. And these anti-gravity propulsion units, when they're in space and there really is no gravity to contend with, do they still propel the craft, or is there another means of propulsion?
Well, of course, there's several means, and some of the newer ones that are being built now are an entirely different propulsion. But
I can see the anti-gravity being needed to get them off the ground and up into orbit. That's clear. But beyond that, you got something else.
And answering your question, how do you do it without people knowing and seeing it? All of it's done underground, just like the facilities up around Mount Shasta and the facilities that are down in New Mexico.
All right. These are enormous caverns. Yeah, I got it. Okay. All right. And you weren't allowed to take your Kodak camera down there with you, obviously.
I wasn't. Maybe some people were.
All right. I wish you had been able to get a ride in the tunnels. That would have been a real kick. But the early ones that we built had trains in them, high-speed normal rail traffic, which is interesting. So
some of the tunnels are like freeways with trucks.
Wow, that big. Now the ET tunnels would have had maglev or something beyond that technology, and then there are still, I've been told, much older tunnels that are still down there that are still just fine and may or may not be being used by us, them, or we'll be right back. Okay, and we're back. Talking to Bob Wood and Bill Tompkins. Now, what we want to talk about, I think this is maybe the most interesting in the absolutely fascinating life of Bill Tompkins, is you mentioned there is some kind of a, let me preface this by saying I spend a lot of time on the air here talking about weather modification, geoengineering, chemtrails, and other things. They're not only doing things underground, they're doing things over our heads all the time. Now, you've got a weird cloud formation off the Southern California coast where you live?
Absolutely. Now, I'd like to premise this by saying that we are supposedly in a El Nino type of weather condition.
Yeah, El Nino, right.
And so clouds do come in that. However, for the past, say, 6 weeks, California weather is beautiful here. Everybody should check that out. But we have had clouds which California doesn't get. And I know the clouds when we have El Nino. I know the shapes. I've seen this for years. These clouds, I want to describe one. And the easiest way to do this is to stretch your arm out right now. Open your hand so your thumb is one way and your little finger's the other way.
Got it.
So that's about 8 inches. About 8 inches, okay? Now, do that about 7 times right across the horizon.
Okay.
Now, a group of clouds started to form out over the ocean. And they were fairly similar. But the wind had been blowing, and so they moved quite fast. This group of clouds made a 180. And it almost turned opposite to the direction that it was going over. It's like it sort of turned and then went out towards the ocean. And when it turned and came back, it was now a diamond, a upside down diamond shape. And the height of this was 30% of the sky.
Okay.
So from the bottom of this diamond that's turned upside, delta shape rather, that's upside down. If there's a V come down, the V goes up, and then there's a top of it that's horizontal.
Correct.
All the way down, the left V are sort of ports, like holes.
Really? Then this looks like this. This is a white cloud in a form of a delta, a V. Is it white?
The cloud is white, but around the center of each one of these little sort of black
ports. Port holes?
White ports. Yeah, ports. And they come all the way down from the left to the bottom, and they come all the way down from the right to the bottom.
Okay, on the sides,
and this thing is massive. This is massive, okay? And, but
is it moving, Bill? Is the cloud moving, or is it stationary at this point?
It moves at 1/2 mile per, okay? It's hardly moving.
All right.
It was there for 7 hours, okay? And it was there in the morning around 8 o'clock, and middle of the afternoon, clouds changed, and it finally left. But the point is, that thing stood there out over the ocean, and it must have been at least 20,000 feet high across the top. Now, the top had a different thing to the top of it. It had sort of almost rectangular spots, which were quite large, with circles around them. And the circles were maybe only 12 or 14, all the way across the top. So
that's very weird. Did you get any pictures of this?
Let me finish. I had the camera.
Yeah.
Okay. Then there were lines, very fine lines, all the way across this, like lines went all the way across it. There must have been 20 lines.
Would this look like what? Like stretched wire lines, like dark lines?
Dark lines. No, white lines.
White lines. All right. Okay.
and there's flight all around both the two verticals going up on the left and the right side, and then there's these curved sort of rectangle things, about 8 of them, quite large across the top.
Oh, it's very weird.
I've never seen this in my life. Never. And for that to be there and finally dissipate is just unbelievable. And my camera didn't work. I didn't have film. And I tried to get a hold of one of the people, the neighbors, and they were gone. And I couldn't get a camera. But I'm just saying that's one type. Now, there's another group of clouds that are different than the clouds we see. And this had long vertical lines hanging down from the clouds. Long, stretching from, say, a 45-degree angle up of the top of the cloud. These hang almost down to the surface of the ocean.
Now, these wouldn't be rain stringers or anything like that.
No, and when you see a cloud with rain coming out of it, you know what that is.
Sure.
This is big, separated lines of white little lines.
Very weird.
Down.
Very weird.
And this was in a perfect rectangle. It was a perfect rectangle. Clouds on top. Then out of the clouds are all these lines that come down. And that was that particular week. We had our fronts come in from southwest, going east. And both of these two situations were the same week. And it's, to me, where I've never seen this before, is amazing.
Well, it is very strange. Storm fronts coming in from the southwest, not too usual. That's part of the El Nino phenomenon, I believe, coming up from the subtropics. Very interesting.
And then when you go to write in to chemtrails in the computer, and everybody should do that, I think, because there's a lot of trails up there.
Oh, yeah.
And in this area, we get them solid for like 3 weeks at a time. Then it'll be maybe a week and a week and a half, and they don't drop it. And then back they are again, the same thing.
They spraying viciously. I know. I've seen them many times.
Now, I'm asking you, Jeff, why do you do that to me?
What did I do?
Yeah, well, you were flying those planes or whatever they were, and you're dropping this stuff on me.
Oh, why would I do that to you if I were doing it?
Yeah,
there are apparently multiple programs underway. The most common explanation is that barium, aluminum, and I've forgotten the third, strontium, some people say, but I don't know that that's true, are put in the jet fuel and then spewed out of the engines. And the idea is that they're turning the lower altitudes, 30,000 feet and lower, into a plasma so they can bounce electrical energy off of it and use it with the HARP program and other similar programs, which aim tremendous energy up to the ionosphere, which comes back down and activates this so-called plasma field that's been created by hundreds and hundreds of aircraft, and they're able to use it for defensive purposes. Some people say anti-missile, this and that. Some people say mind control. Some people say climate control. It could be all the above. I don't know. I don't have the exact answer, of course, because I'm not privy to any of that. But it is a program that's ongoing, has been going on since the mid-'90s, but I don't have an answer for you.
Okay, well, you're telling me that the old HARP program is still going, okay?
I'm telling you that what I hear is the one up there has been given to a university, the one in Alaska, but that they have portable and mobile facilities that they can set up almost anywhere. There's supposedly one on an island off of Baja, California, which is helping to steer the weather. I don't have answers. I can just tell you what I've heard.
Okay.
What are your thoughts on the HARP program interfering with weather?
Well, the heart actually will almost do anything because that's, of course, another program that many fellows have worked on for a long time.
Yeah.
And it isn't for just communications, but essentially it can be handled to play around with your head.
Yeah.
It can be handled to drop a missile on you.
Yep.
It can,
well, that's what I was saying a few minutes ago. Similar things. Yes, I agree. I concur.
The whole box full of stuff.
Yeah.
And amazing.
I agree. Okay, let me ask you one other question while we still have a few minutes, Bill, and I'd love to have you back again. Maybe we can get through a program like we did the first time, flawlessly. We have to use a landline phone next time. That's okay. It's not your fault. It happens to all of us. The solar system in which we live, hold the music, Todd. I'm going to burn up a few minutes here. The solar system is inhabited by off-planet intelligences and our own intelligences, yes or no? And who's out there and what planets are inhabited? Complicated question. Yeah. Well, yes, just briefly. All right. What's on? Let me just do this. What's on Mars right now? Who's on Mars?
We have facilities on Mars.
Yes.
And other people do too.
Okay.
And just like underground in New Mexico, there's large facilities. On Mars, most of the facilities are underground.
Are the glass the glass tubes, so-called, that we've seen in some of the Mars photographs, are those actually part of the underground system, tunnels, if you will? They're awfully big, like 100 meters across, but they look like tubes.
A good way to answer that is when we were working on the tunnels for the Air Force contract. My secretary came in, and you'd have to see her to really understand this, because she's really flirts all the time. She had the Air Force general reviewing our program.
I'll bet he was.
And his staff was there. And so she asked the general, how did he get his big B-52s in those tunnels from Washington back out to the air base in California? And that broke up the meeting because tunnels couldn't get the wings into those.
Of course
tunnels.
not. Yeah.
But tunnels on the moon are, from what most of the reports have shown, are less than on our planet, but there's a lot of caverns on Mars.
Yeah.
And
okay.
they have tunnels too.
Are any of the original inhabitants of Mars still there? Do you have any knowledge of that?
Only that some of them that came here left relatives there, and there's a great deal of communications with some of them.
Yeah. Does that mean to say that we are Martians, or does that mean to say that Martians blended in here without being noticed?
Well, depending on who me is, actually, if you will accept that some of us are from another star's planet system on the other side of the galaxy.
Okay.
So I would have to say, when you've got several stars out there that have different groups of people, Mars is a situation very similar to Earth being looked at and being worked on by different species, different civilization species.
Right. So we're there. We've been up there for decades, doing this and doing that. When you look at the pictures of the Curiosity rover, the pictures that seem to show things, do you chuckle because it is showing things, and do you I guess you kind of got to laugh at some of the cover-up efforts that the NASA photography team goes through before they release these images.
Well, that's true, and especially on the moon, because we've got really good photography of everything on the moon.
Uh-huh.
And when we got there with the ball, it was a problem because around the rim of the crater were parked these 6-kilometer-long spacecraft carriers, and they were not on the ground; they were floating above, and they had many of the personnel out of the vehicles, standing on the dirt, the moon dirt,
watching,
giving us the finger, and
so to speak.
I think that we never found out, or I'm sure they have now, but at the time we never found out who it was that told us to go ahead and finish taking our pictures, pick up the rocks, 3 or 4 more of your missions, and
that's
don't
it.
Come back.
Don't come back.
And, we got the finger over the phone.
That's funny. Bill, would you do me 2 things? One, you and Bob, but especially Bill Tompkins, you have a Merry Christmas, Bill, and will you please come back and we'll do some more of this?
Yes, we'd love to.
Thank you. Thank you, Bill Tompkins, very much. That was fascinating. We're going to edit this program up and tighten it up so it'll be a perfect listen, and lots of new things to think about for sure. Thank you, Bill. Merry Christmas again.
And Merry Christmas to you and everybody that worked on it there.
Thank you, sir.
And I got to wish Bob and his family Merry Christmas too. Okay.
Merry Christmas.
Okay. All right, Bob Wood, thank you, sir, for being here. Thank you for editing this book, and you've got a lot of wonderful things ahead of you with the books to come.
Thank you.
All right. Merry Christmas, Bob.
Merry Christmas.